Part 2, the letter tet here. Psalm 119. So starting at verse 65. Tov, tet vav bet, is the first word David used with the letter tet. So the thing about that word is that it's also used in the first day of the Genesis creation, where it says, Vayira Elohim et ha'or ki tov, and perceived or saw Elohim. So in Hebrew, they put the verb in front of the one who's doing the verb, that the light was good. So the word good is tav or tet vav bet. Both the tav and the tet both sound like the letter T. English doesn't have a letter tet. So in English, coming out of Latin, the eighth letter being the H, like the letter het, and then it jumps to I, and then they added the letter J, which is a duplicate of the I. But the tet is just dropped out. So right there, in Greek, it would be theta, kind of the TH sound. But so in English, the number, the count of the letters starts being changed by losing the tet. But if tet's, let's just say the concept of the full basket, vav bet, and if vav is a nail or a hook or a bridge or an attachment device to the bet, what's the bet? Well, bet, the word bet means house, or as I was describing it, the tangible object, the existing thing, matter, cosmos, materialized, put into a state of being that it can be engaged by, you might say, the laws of the universe. And so you can look at the word tov as a full basket of being in the noun bet state. So, I've talked about numerous times, I've looked at different people's studies of, you might say, quantum physics, or the concept of stuff with Nikola Tesla and Victor Schauberger and stuff. There's this idea of resonance and frequency and sound and vibration and energy, that things that exist in the material world are immaterial, that they are actually just some phase of vibration. And scientists will basically agree that that's the case. You get elements composed of atoms, composed of electrons, protons, which are, I remember hearing it said that if you looked at the model of the solar system, where you have the sun and the various planets, millions of miles in between the planets compared to the sun, that macroscopically, that's pretty much similar to the space that electrons are flying around the nucleus of the atom, and that most of everything is empty space. And then other people say, well, that's not a good model, but theoretically, metaphorically, that's a pretty exact model of macro compared to micro, which is the fractal pattern on display. So you could say, well, if most of what exists is empty space, well, but I see it, I can touch it, I can see the trees out in front of me, and I exist. Here's my corporeal matter. But for Elohim to invent light, to speak light into existence, but light's immaterial, other than the fact it might be a photon or a package of energy, an electron. So the concept that whatever he started building at that level functioned properly. That's the word tov. So tov is, we might say, oh, it's translated good, but it has something to do with full house, a picture of a cornucopia, the word copious, and even the word corn. I might think, oh, corn, that's like that yellow thing with a bunch of kernels on it that you can make popcorn or that. But corn is actually any grain that's multiplied, similar to the word resh bet bet, to multiply profusely, or like the word for fish, or the concept of noon, that which just keeps expanding. So for something to function properly and then multiply exceedingly, that's really the meaning of the word tov, which is to say that the whatever he had in mind when he, Elohim, the creator, let's just say invented or caused to exist the bet, and that it functioned at capacity the way he hoped and dreamed and intended. That's the tetness, that's the full basket. And then the full basket, then nature or status of the bet being able to do what he had envisioned it to do, that's the word tov. Well, you see, the entire universe is waiting for tovness of Israel doing what it was supposed to do. See, Israel is Yahuwah's bet, the same way that Yahusha is Yahweh's bet. And all these years, Israel has absolutely failed to walk in the ways, to listen to the voice of Yahuwah's vote, and just simply do what he said to do. And so there's been no tov, there's been no full basket of tet all these years inside Yahuwah's chet. And if that's the tet, that's when the basket's full, then the power of Yod to start doing with the strong hand what he has always hoped for it to do, then it can happen. Remember what he said to Abraham. He says, your children will be living in the land of Egypt because the iniquity of the people that live in the land, was it the Canaanites, the Amorites, or whoever he was, he said, is the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. The basket of iniquity in that case is not yet full. So because it's not yet full, it can't tip into the next. So I've talked about, like with this this chart here, we were talking about it, the meta, that I believe the word is titration, the titration of the time or the condition, the status of one phase getting to the point of saturation, and so it automatically becomes the other next thing. Think of it in the decimal system, 2.0, 2.9, 2.10 is actually 3. The tipping point, the tipping of the scales. When does something become the next phase? When does the status, the nature, the status quo of one letter get saturated, filled to becoming the next letter? That point of change. But the tov is then, when the bet gets full, it becomes gimel. When the gimel gets full, it becomes dalet. There's that way of looking at the letters. But so the idea of when Israel, Deuteronomy 30, when all these things have come upon you, the blessing, the curse, like I explained today, then you will return to these words. And then when you return to these words, Yahweh will cause you to function at the next capacity. And then he's going to turn his attention of wrath against your enemies. But he is using your enemies in the meanwhile in order to get you conditioned. Tet. The Israelites were ready to go into the promised land. They said, let's send some spies in there. They were in there 40 days, and they came back and said, oh, we can't do it. And Elohim basically was very upset with his people, and he said, okay, a day for a year, you spied out the land for 40 days. You're going to spend 40 years walking in the wilderness, dying, like you thought I brought you out here to kill you. Okay, I'm going to kill you in the desert, just like you thought I was going to do, because you refused to believe that I was going to do what I told you I was going to do. Until that time is full, when the basket is full, there's Tet. When the basket is full, then I will bring you in. So the end of 2,730 years is another type of Tet. Daniel, chapter 12, Daniel was told, commissioned by Archangel Gabriel, hide the word, seal the book until the time of the end. Well, that word end is spelled QOOF-YOD-TET, but that concept of the end is when the basket's full, when the 2,730 years are. Now I'm making the equation, the equal, that the full basket of Daniel 12:4 is the 2,730 years. What if it's the end of the world, or whether it's the end of something else? Well, what else is there to measure? If you can find something else to measure, go ahead and think about that. But it looks like the timing, because we're still here in 2010, 15 years ago, 2,730 years since the Assyrians took over the northern kingdom. So at least for the northern kingdom, well, if we were at a capacity of the Tet not being full yet, time, if the Tet's full of the time, 7 times 390, as he said in 7 times Leviticus 26, 390, he said in Ezekiel 4. If that's the full basket, the cornucopia is that kind of a basket thing that's kind of half curled and open at one end and all the fruit coming out of it. I heard somebody say once that has something to do with a bad symbology, and it's like, whatever, it's abundance, it's reshbet-betness. I don't see that as a bad thing. But the concept here, this again, we're going to zero in on what David is saying. This is verse 65. So this tov ashit. So tov is not just good. It's doing what you're supposed to be doing at value, at capacity. Like or is tov, day one, bam, it happened just like Elohim had envisioned. It works. It's happening brilliantly. Well, the word ashit, ayin shin yod tav, is doing, making, forcing, accomplishing. Ayin mem, that's the people. Ayin bet dalet kaf. Kaf means you, but the ayin bet dalet is servant. The people who are your servants are doing the very thing that you'd ask them to do. Yahweh, like you said, kaf, dalet bet resh, kaf. The first kaf means like, the last kaf is you. Debar is said. So this first verse of 65 is like everything Yahweh had ever hoped for and dreamed for. So he told us to do certain things. And then this first sentence that says, it's happening. That is a spectacular moment that is being described here. That can only happen when Deuteronomy 30 starts to happen, which is just like Ezekiel 36:23. When, instead of profaning and defiling his great name, his reputation, we actually are making his Shem Kadosh, displaying his Shem Kadosh, believing and thinking his Shem Kadosh, not just sacred, holy, set apart, but powerfully, functionally happening, toving. When we behave as Obed, Ashit, doing everything we're allowed to do, everything we were equipped to do, everything he told us to do. Verse 66, Tov once again, Tet Mem Ayin. And Vav, Dalet Ayin Tav. Well, that's knowing, but Tet Mem Ayin is the word that means taste, perceive, flavor. Give something to somebody to taste. Hey, what do you think about this? Try this. I'll put a little bit of this and that in here. What do you think? What do you think that tastes like? It's the word that means to reason or cause, accent, accentuate, stress, make tasty. So everything that we're talking about here is trying to do that with the Paleo-Hebrew. This whole study is to try to make tasty the appreciation, the understanding, the regard. Oh, I see how it works. I see what it means, so that we will, as his servants, do tovly. We're trying to say, look how tov his stuff is, his Shem, his instructions. Everything he said to do was not just, you better, you're in big trouble. But everything he said to do is, when you do this, bam, it'll blossom, it'll zadi and koof into the resh shin tav, because that's how every instruction is loaded. And if we're told that his zadi vav command is just, we don't have to keep that stupid law, well, why wouldn't we? Because see, zadi vav, the word command, used in this sentence here, is a resurrection. Zadi is a sprout of pei zadi, resurrection. The grave opens up. Zadi is a blossom. Zadi is the flourish. Zadi is the zitzi. Zadi is Zadi Dalet, Zadik, Zadi Dalet Kuf is the word righteous, but it's also victory, deliverance, and salvation. It's to be successful as the overcoming of even the grave and death. Well, Zadi, that powerful effect of the affect of his doing Tov, Ashit, what it says in verse 66 is Tov, Tet, Ayin, Mem. So the good, making tasty, and knowing, and the knowledge, which is to comprehend, lamadi, lamadni. Well, lamad, lamed, means teach and learn. But the other way to read lamed mem dalet nun yod is I'm engaged in the action of doing it. Dalet nun is like Dan, the word to judge, decide, be the referee who calls this is that. And I'm going to make the determination then. But mem dalet is meter, measure, character, and nature. So I can read it as lamad ni, nun yod suffix, or I can read it as lamed and mem, or the prefix letters of mem dalet nun, or mem dalet is the word that's being nooned that Islamed means unto or regarding. So mem dalet is the word for mode, or being like tailor fit or stretched or made to fit the character and nature of what? Of Elohim, just like Yeshua. I only say what I hear him saying. I only do what I see him doing. For us to lamed, learn to stretch, to fit into that character, nature, principle, meter, measure, according to the nature of, because thus, kaf yod, then the next word, bet, mem zadi, vav tav yod kaf. So it can be read as, because I am found in the capacity of, that's the prefix letter of your commands, mem zadi, plural vav tav. I have, that's the tav yod, and you, yours, but mem zadi, I have found. But see, it's not just, wait a minute, when I'm in the capacity of doing what he said, because he said so, because I found out to do what he said, because now I'm inside the gate, the chet, instead of outside, and I can see the tasty value of him, which is to say, it's this resurrection power, it's the ability to flourish even no matter what power of death or darkness or lies have obliterated what he was saying. But when we as his people, Israel, say, he told us that if we listen to his voice, Shema, listen, Koli, to my voice, Shamar, guard, watch, keep, observe, remove the dregs, keep it clean, and Asha, do what I said, then he would be our shield and our Shaddai, obliterating force against all of our enemies and provision of whatever we need. But so he is our sword and shield if we do what he says. But if we don't, if we regard what he says, Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28, if we regard what he says as detestable, loathsome, abhorrent, I don't like it, I don't want it, and casual disregard, whatever, then it will empower our enemies. So here's the interesting perspective. When Israel regards Yahweh's Zadi Vav command, he is our shield and defense. And we have the tetanus, the fullness of everything he ever promised, Nam Yahweh, by decree to be so. But, which is why he said to Abraham, I have Yada, loved him, known him, that he will command his children. That's why I've chosen Abraham, because this is what I want my family to be about, that when we don't listen to him, that's the empowerment of our enemies to prevail over us. Because Zadokah, righteousness, is doing what he said. So when we don't do what he said, our enemies get the victory. When we do what he said, we get the victory. And that's the tastiness of knowledge, which is why David said, I want to learn to stretch into appreciating your Zadivav, because that's the truth, the emet, that I want to be found faithfully. The last word is here, ha-emanti. Well, amen is so be it. Aleph Mem Nun, emet is truth, Aleph Mem Tav. So the difference in the suffix of Aleph Mem, which is the word meaning if, it's also the word mother, it's also the word metropolis or nation, which is that which is the place of incubation, of bringing in resources and turning them into productivity, like a mother, like a city, like a factory, like a nation, incoming resources, functional processing, putting out a product. Listen to Yahweh's words, do them, and be the light, be the salt. So the word faithful to what he said as the truth and the truth are pretty close fit words together. So the word Zadivav Tav, Zadivav is the word command, but you could say, I have found in your commands the staging of the blossoming, the resurrection, recovery. Zadivav Tav, listen, obey, kindle, burn, join the crew, team up with the association, the society, which is the word chaver that we talked about last week. So all this is in just the bet, mem, Zadivav Tav, yod, kaf. It's not just your commands. If you sit there and look at every letter, every 2 letters, every 3 letters, the concepts embedded within the word, join the crew, the blue, purple, red, white, be on Yahweh's, be of his zavot, his angel armies, his hosts, his legions. Yeah, but he's also got Adam as part of that capacity, meaning a different one of his legions. Verse 67, tet resh mem. It means not yet, before or preceding. Tet resh yod, fresh and new. Tet resh hey, something tossed aside. Tet resh, rattle, make a loud noise, to mess somebody around, rattle brained. It's like, what does all that mean? What is tet resh mem? Resh mem is ram, which is high, which is lofty. Tet, again, the full basket is like, this is one of those words. It's like, what exactly does that mean? Well, so then you read the rest of the words. Aleph, I, and Nun, hey. Well, Aleph is the prefix letter. I am, I will, I am doing. I, and Nun, hey. That's that word that means reply, respond, to be humbled. It's used in Isaiah 58 as fast and just burden yourself to become oppressed. That word is used a lot in scripture. So that's one of the things where you see that word, and if it becomes very familiar. It's not just reply, it's not just don't eat, it's make it your business. Make it your shem is what it really means. And then the word ani, which is I am, shin gimel gimel, shagag, shin gimel gimel. It means go astray, error, sin unintentionally, mistake, wander, swerve, stagger. Shin gimel hey means to be led astray or misled. That's like by bad teaching or by the enemy infiltrating and sabotaging. A hobby or to be absorbed in vanities, just kind of wasting time, is Shin Gimel Yod Vav Nun, Shin Gimel Yod Aleph, lofty, exalted, great, but it's also error and mistake. So it's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but it can be seen as wasting time. Well, wait a minute, to just kind of like throw something away, that's kind of like the first word, tet resh mem or tet resh hey, which is a different suffix, but it means to be tossed something aside. Let's read the last three words. Ve'ata, that means right now. Amer taka, amer, aleph mem resh is saying, declaring, kaf suffix is you. So this is what you have said, but now, see the vav prefix of aleph or ayin tav hey doesn't always mean and. It can mean but, or it can mean something is different now. So in other words, if the first word was before or preceding, David is saying here, I used to, or before, but now, what you said in the last word is shamerti. I have kept guard watch. Now I shamer what you said. But before I decided to burden myself with your concerns, because I was rattle-brained, because I just tossed it aside like I didn't know, I didn't care. I was either misled or just unintentionally, I was wandering and swaggered and swerved and staggered and absorbed in vanities. So David is saying here, verse 67, it's like, whatever the reason, whether it was treacherous betrayal, whether it was bad learning, whether I was a kid, nobody told me, I was just doing fun stuff. I was doing athletics, or I was learning how to sing. Those aren't bad things, but I was spending all my time. Maybe you were working in the garden. That's a lovely thing to do. That's not a bad thing. But now I have to regard what you said with all my heart. It's a whole different level of why. Get into verse 68. Tovata, ALEF-TAV hey is the word YOU, good. You are good. But again, ALEF-TAV being expressed, ALEF-TAV being hey, there's where the tovness is. And then the word vav mem tet yod bet. Well, tet vav bet tov, here tet yod bet, it's the same basic word because you can replace yods and vavs in between the other letters and it's still the same thing. So he's saying you are tov and the mem of tov, or the mem tiv. So mem is where the source is. Again, you have to look back at the Mishkan pattern. What's the mem prefix? Well, mem is water, mem is a womb, mem is the place, and it means, when mem's a prefix, it means the place of, or it means to be away from. You're not there anymore. And you don't know. So every word can be read both ways, that mem is either the place where it is at, or it used to be at and it's not there anymore. Because mem's the place, or mem is the objectification, which is to say to betify something could be seen as mem. So it's the saying, not only are you good, and you are the essentially ALEF-TAV on display, which is the whole ALEF-BEIT, which is YHUH Mashiach, the whole ALEF-BEIT, the word made flesh, but you are the source and the place where it all springs from and develops and harbors. This is the place it lives. This is the habitat of all goodness, is in the ALEF-TAV, which is you, Yahuwah. Lamadni, there's that same word again. Therefore, Lamed, I will stretch myself to fit to the measure and the index of the last word, het kuf yod kaf. Well, het kuf chok is law. Zadivav is command, but het kuf is the law itself. Zadivav is that which is commanded, you might say. I command you, but het kuf is the law which is commanded. But it also means to imitate. And it also means engraved. So the fact that Elohim wrote with his finger on the tables of stone is het kuf, and what he wrote was the het kuf, and what we're supposed to do is imitate what he wrote. Is we're supposed to het kuf the het kuf of the het kuf. So David's saying, I want to learn how to do that because that's the source and the place where everything you ever said happens. So anybody that then tells us otherwise and says, don't bother learning that, that's a waste of your time. It's like, I'm not going to listen to that voice. What a foolish thing to listen to that voice. Verse 69, Tet Pe Lamed Vav. Tet Pe Lamed is dependent, subsidiary, child, tasteless and unseasoned, liar, slanderer, putty that you smear plaster on. It's also mean to be added, attached, joined with. It's a parasite, parasitic plant, or to be cared for, attended to. It's a strange variant list, but it's something that's attached like a parasite. Well, a child is absolutely dependent on its parents. But then there's a liar and a slanderer. Anyway, so you have to finish reading. Ayin Lamed Yod. Well, Ayin Lamed is Ali, as in Aliyah, is above me, or to my success, my prospering, but it also, Ayin Lamed is a yoke, or to be attached to or tethered with this other thing. The next thing is Shin Kuf Resh. Well, that's the word sucker, liar, false, swindle, defrauded, deception, or one who lies as a profession, a pathological liar. So something that's like a child who's dependent on me, a Klingon who lies as a profession. Then the next word, Zayin Dalet Yod Mem. Yod Mem is the suffix. Zayin Dalet, the plural suffix. So Zayin Dalet, or look at Zayin Dalet. Hey, it's insolent, malicious, arrogant, breach, presumption, the audacity. I am, the next word. Bekal love, with all heart. Aleph Zadi Resh, I will collect, I will store up. That's the word Azor, like the Azor Islands, a treasury. Bet Kuf Vav Dalet Yod Kaf. Well, again, Kaf suffix, your Pe Kuf Vav Dalet, which is translated as precepts. So he's saying, so you read the sentence backwards. I found that to be really helpful. Your precepts I will store up and collect with all heart, with a great endeavor. I'm going to do this. This is my being. And you can say, why? Because I'm surrounded, and what's clinging to me is 3 words of bad stuff. Parasites of deception and malicious, whether it's intentionally malicious, trying to trap me, trick me, cause me to stumble, or other people dependent on me that are pulling my attention and energy here and there. It's like, I need your stuff. Well, see, it goes back to the previous verse of 68, where it says, your words, your stuff is where all tovness grows and develops and emerges from. So if I go back to that pool, that basket of what did you say and what did you tell us to do, that I'm going to find out, Mem Zadi Vav, that's where I'm going to be energized to do everything else I'm supposed to do. Verse 70, Tet Pe Shin, means stupid, foolish, gross, fat, dull, thick, and sluggish, which is very similar to the word that means abomination, which is like some kind of a tumor that just doesn't function properly. The opposite of tovness, you might say. The next word, kaf, chet, lamed, bet. Well, kaf is a prefix, means like, and chet, lamed, bet, chalev, or chalava, is milk or milk fat. So it's like, this is a strange thing. Dull, thick, sluggish, like milk fat. It's almost like this picture of curdled milk. Well, see, he just talked about storing up your precepts. Now he's talking, in the end of last verse, now he's talking about curdled milk. Lamed bet mem. Lamed bet is heart. When it ends in mem, it's a suffix. So it's kind of like he's talking about hearts. Ani torta shashati. Well, I am Ani, tort, that's your Torah instructions. Shinai and Shinayim, that's delight. Shasha. Hav-Yod is I've delighted. So he's saying, I'm going to store up, picture curdled milk. The word lamed bet is heart, but it's lamed bet hey is also inflamed and set ablaze. It's maybe somebody has a better picture of that than me, but I'm just trying to say, I'm looking at these words and saying, tet pei shin means stupid, foolish, gross, fat, dull, thick, sluggish. But pei shin, like pishtosh, is to jump about in haughtiness or folly, just being stupid. A full basket of stupidness, like milk. I'm going to have my heart set ablaze with your instructions and delighted. He's not saying that it's a bad thing. It's almost like he's saying, if you're going to call this stupid, I'm going to be really stupid, but I'm going to spend all my time collecting what I can of understanding what you said and how to do it. So again, these verses are tied together. Some of the words used in one verse go right into this description of the previous verse. Verse 71, Tov li. Well, lamed yod means it belongs to me. This is mine. So my tovness in this case, so my basket that's full, or for me to function at full capacity. Well, see, he just described in the previous verse that I'm going to gather up all your precepts. And you could say, well, it's like milk. It didn't just say it was like milk. It had to do, well, Hovli, he means because, thus, when, while, if. Then ayin nun, yod tav yod. Well, there's that ayin nun hey in a different suffix. Ayin nun means to reply, answer, to humble oneself, make it your occupation and your concern. Then the word lamed mem ayin nun. And again, we saw that where he was talking to Abraham, and he's going to command his children so that this will happen, so that I can do everything I said. So that line, lamed mem ayin nun, is the so that. But ayin nun is that word like ayin nun hey that means as a reply and answer. So it's the reciprocation. Mem or lamed mem, both prefix letters, it says like lamed is when, mem, there's the pool, like the pool of water where what's growing in there? Ayin nun. When what's happening at the mem state is that you're replying, you're responding, you're taking it to heart. See, these words can be read as if they're a formula, not just a word with a definition. So as you're looking at the spelling of the word and picturing how they fit within this Mishkan pattern, I know what the mem is. I know that ayin nun is translated to respond with making it my shem, making it my obsession. But ayin also says, with the measure you use, it's measured to you. And ayin is also what goes around, comes around, man's ways returned on his own head. And the nun is that action of sprouting something out. So David says, I want to know what you said to do so I can do that. So that's what's returned. And then Aleph, Lamed, Mem, Dalet, where there's the word Lamed, which is teach and learn and be stretched to fit to the index. Aleph Lamed is motion toward, Aleph is I will, and then Het Kuf Yod Kaf, your law. I'm going to imitate. I'm going to imitate and stretch myself to fit. Again, he's modeling what his craving passion is on exactly what YHUH said. I'm going to do what I see my father doing and say what I hear him saying. So you could kind of look at this. I have a note here that it's kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, if you believe in creation, the chicken came first. But if you don't believe in creation, it's like, gosh, did the chicken come out of the egg, or how did that evolve? But picture a cartoon, kind of like one of these Marvel action hero things, a guy that's dressed in some outfit where he's like a Superman or Iron Man or something. And it's like, if we get stretched to fit into his capacity, do we step into that outfit, or by listening to what he said and doing what he said, we become fit ourselves to that capacity? In other words, do you step into that suit of clothes? That suit of clothes is Mem Dalet. Well, the word lamed mem dalet is teach, learn, and repeat. But see, the word lamed is not just teach and learn. It also means according to the index of the tailor-fit character, nature, mode, like that outfit that somebody might wear, like a tailor-made garment, according to formal specification of YHUH Mashiach, according to Yahweh's plan of Israel being the salvation of the world, you might say, because we're supposed to be operating in the same capacity of Yahusha, who came and modeled it for us. Verse 72, the last one of the Tet section. Tov li, once again, same as the verse 71, my goodness, what I regard as my full basket, tort, then pay yod kaf, your mouth instructions. And then mem, aleph lamed pay yod. Well, aleph lamed pay is aleph. Mem is the place of aleph, or the pool, the pond, the womb of my alephness. What does that mean? Well, lamed pay is where we get the word in English, lip, lap, or laugh. But aleph is an ox. But if aleph is identity and intent, personal consciousness, then I can say, if aleph is emerging out of mem, lameding peyod is my mouth, then I could say, my goodness at your mouth, peyod kaf. Your mouth expresses the Torah, tort. And so my goodness, he's identifying what that means, is for my mouth to harbor this. Mem aleph hey, this is the word mem aleph lamed pei yod, and I'm just looking at that word and break it down into its component parts. Mem aleph hey is the word 100. If I could say, well, the next word is Zion Hey Bet. Hey Bet is the word give. Zion Hey means this. So Zion Hey Bet can mean give this, but it's translated as the word gold. The last word, Vav Kaf Samik Pei, that's the word silver, Kaf Samik Pei. But Samik Pei is a cup or a goblet, sofa to absorb. Sif is a swordsman or an executioner. So it could say silver, that's gold and silver, but silver is also the word for longing or yearning, like there's nothing else, or because Samik Pei is like a goblet, like a silver goblet, fill it up with extending out from mem. If mem goes into aleph, the opportunity to exist in the cosmos with a body as a self in time and space. Why are we here? Why does this all exist? We who are thinking and speaking and breathing, and we have this opportunity of betness. He gave us our own alephness to exist in this cosmos. Why? Greater than gold and silver is for us to choose to have a heart to regard what he said, at which time our tovness gets maximized, our tetness is made full. But that's just the beginning of launching into what do you do? What do you do when your car has a full tank of gas and you got good tires and the oil's been changed and you got your gear and you're ready to go? Well, we haven't even seen that yet. Our tovness is just getting at capacity, ready to go adventuring. The fact that we have a body and we're in time and space is a temporary restriction. So the picture of Chet being on the other side of the Zion is also a picture of going into an eternal dimension, if the first 7 letters is this time and space. So I can also look at this as saying, just choosing to be his people and just listening to what he said and how to do it is just getting geared up and becoming fit into that suit of we don't even know what. But when he comes back, Reshin Tav, licensed, authorized, and permitted. But Reshin Tav is also net, trap, and snare, like a tet. So I can compare the tet status to the Reshin Tav status and say there's an equivalent there to understand. If Reshin Tav is like retina, like net, capturing light, but we are the light. So we're supposed to capture his light, which is Tov, which is where we get the full capacity to be the light. We're supposed to be able to manifest his essence. So let me jump ahead to this Psalms 91. We don't have a whole lot of time. Maybe I should do Psalms 91 another time. But let me, it's in the notes, but let me, Psalms 91 is written very similar to Psalm 119. And I thought it was pertinent here because some people, Psalm 91 is their favorite chapter in the Bible. And when I say it's similar to 119, it's very short verses, 5 or 6 words in every verse. And if you want to do exercise learning and writing, do the same thing that I encourage people to do with 119, which is write down the Paleo-Hebrew, the modern cursive, the English letters, the definitions, and then try to pull it together. And to do that, I'll try to do it quickly with Psalm 91. Sit, dwell in secret hiding place, most high, shade, shadow, covered over, almighty. And then there's this word that means it's Yod, Tav, Lamed, Vav, Nun, Nun, which is pass the night, remain, lodge. See, it doesn't necessarily translate the way the English is familiar with, but it's just stay there. Secret hiding place of the Most High, Bes Satar, Samik Tav Resh. How do you get there? What is that? That means there is a secret hiding place. I'd say it was inside the Chet, in the place where the Tet is. Verse 2, Amer la Yahweh mechasi. It's like declare of Yahweh or by Yahweh the place of Chet Samik, which is my refuge. And Vav, Mem Zadi Vav Dalet Tav Yod. Well, this is a very interesting word showing you the way the language works. Zadi Dalet is to hunt, like the word Zadik. They say, well, Zadi Dalet is to hunt. And so Mem Zadi Vav Dalet is either that which is hunted, prey, or it's where the one who is hunted finds refuge, which is a fortress. So it's either a net, trap, or snare, like the Tet, like the Reshin Tav, or it's one who is hunted that they're trying to snare, and it's the place that he can go where they can't catch him. And then the word is he, ALEF-BEIT, Het, which is the word for trust or confident or be secure, Bet Vav in him. So there again, Bet, Tet, Het. Bet is in ALEF-BEIT is to desire. It's this manifest capacity of Tet, Het in the basket, in the Het. It's like I am his personal possession. I am holding on to his words. So I could say the reciprocal picture is whoever's hunting me, I find refuge away from them. So here the mem can mean away from being their prey because I'm in a fortress, or it can mean the object of the ones who are trying to hunt. As you try to look at these words, you'll see that. Anyway, verse 3, he, hua, because he is Yod, Zadi Yod Lamed Kaf, that's the word Zadi Lamed is cover and shade, Mem Pei Het. That's another word meaning Pei Het is trap, snare, or disappointment. Exhale, breathe out, frustrate, to puncture a tire. Vav, Yod Kufav Shin. Well, Kufav Shin is the word, like Kuf Shin is straw or stiff or rigid or difficult or hard. And it's like Madabar Hu'ut. That's away from your word. That's where things are problematic. But he who is in the cover is hidden away. See, the word mem can be both where it's at and away from where it's at. Yeah, but see, David's talking about addressing Yahweh's word. What did he say? There's something about knowing what Yahweh said and addressing his debar is where the refuge is. That's why I'm trying to read Psalm 91. In other words, if Tet's a picture of shield and sword, spiritual warfare, Psalm 91 about that matter, how do you get or how do you use the spiritual warfare? Verse 4, Bet, Aleph, Bet, Resh, Tavav. Well, Aleph, Bet, Resh, like Abraham, Abar, means to soar on pinion wings. Bet Aleph means to enter. Bet Resh is pure and clean. Bet Resh Tav, like Bet Resh Yod Tav is the word Brit or covenant. Yod Samek Kaf. Samek Kaf is like the word sukkah. Sukkah hut to cover. Lakah, of yours. So you might say soaring, but Yod Samek Kaf also means to anoint or be covered with oil, like be covered with a sukkah. So he's saying, listen, you said that I'd be soaring on these wings if I'm covered over by what? Well, if Kaf is not just hand, but the lines of your instruction, and Samek is the engineered structure, like the menorah, like the engineered pattern of the Mishkan pattern. See, the value that I give each one of these letters, and the more full of value of what works, what's functional, of what did Yahweh say. So I'm trying to now read the tet, the full basket of what's in each one of these letters to get what David is saying. Let me go quicker here. Tav, chet, tav is under, where I stand. Kanaf, yodvav, his kanafi is wing. Tav, chet, samek, hey, chet, samek again is refuge. Zadi, nun, hey is shield. Here's an interesting word. Vav, samek, chet, resh, hey. Aleph Mem Tav Vav. Well, Aleph Mem Tav is his truth. Samek Het Resh. Well, that's your shield and buckler is your truth. What's Samek Het Resh? It's something which goes around. Well, that's a small shield, so that's a buckler. That's the way it's translated. But what you look in the dictionary, it means dizzy, vertigo, carry on business, traveling salesman, trade traffic, merry-go-round, roundabout, to spin, negotiable, buy and sell merchandise. It's like buying and selling merchandise. His truth? Is he telling us that we should market his stuff? It's what it looks like. It's not the word buckler. It's the word translated buckler. A shield and what? Well, it seems to me that the weapon that you throw that goes around is a tomahawk. Just playing with words, how would you spell tomahawk? Well, tav mem, tom, that means perfect. Ahak, aleph, het, kuf. Well, het, kuf is the law, het kuf yod, legal, but it's also to imitate what he wrote. So het kuf yod nun is to imitate the law of perfection, tomahawk or tomahawking. Well, there's another way to spell tomahawk, which would be tama, tet, mem, aleph, which is the word for abomination. And chakin, chakan, het kuf nun, so it's like the same exact letters except tet instead of tav. Well, kuf aleph is to vomit. Het kuf nun is to give an enema. So to give yourself an enema of abominations, it's like, get rid of that stuff. Purge it from your being. Tamahakan. And do tamahakan. Imitate the prescribed law perfectly. That's what goes around. That's the shield and, well, if that's the sword of the tomahawk, the offensive weapon, and the shield is the defensive, and Zadi Nun Hey, Zadi is this flourishing sprout of Nun Hey being engaged in. That's actually like the Galatians 5:22, the bearing of the fruit. The nooning is Hey becoming evident. And again, you can go through, and once you have an equivalent full basket of what each letter is, you can reach in and pull out anything of what's in the basket of each letter and plug it into the spelling of words to get a fuller understanding. 5, lo tira, do not fear. There will be no fear. Me pechad, which is a trap, a snare, a dread, an object of fear. Laila machatz, or arrow, iauf, which is to fly by day. I will not fear the terror by night or the arrow that flies by day. Verse 6, medabar be'afel, word or speak when dark or gloomy. Yod, hey lamed kaf, he will walk. Mem kuf tet bet. Well, mem QOOF-YOD-TET bet is the word for, they say it's pestilence or destruction, but it's also, if you look at the dictionary, an axis, pole, basis, principal theorem. It's like if you have a globe with a vertical axis right through the middle, that upon all which spins. It's kind of like the fulcrum on the teeter-totter. It's kind of like what goes around comes around. It's like to understand the way things work. Yod Shin Vav Dalet, well, that's to destroy, but it's also overpower, violently rob, ravage, ruin. It's the root of the word shad, as in Shaddai. And then this last word, Zaharim, Zadi Hey Resh, Yod Mem. Well, Zohar means brightly shining, like this word Zaharim is the word for midday sun. So what he's saying is, Madabar can mean wilderness or language or word speaker, matters which, when they're dark, obscure, gloomy, or awful, walking in what he said as the Dabar is like the center of the axis upon which everything else is balanced, like the center of a gyroscope, and it's going to completely overpower and violently rob the dark, obscure gloominess like the noonday sun. He's saying, knowing what Yahweh said and what it means and how to do it, Yahweh gave us everything. There's nothing more he could give. Yeshua didn't come to do away with it and give us something else. Those are lies to rob Israel of their tovness. And to see that, to declare, Zadi Hey Resh also means he declared or proclaimed, will obliterate the dark, gloomy obscurity. Verse 7, Yafal me Zadka. He will fall who hunts you, the one who, the mem who, Zadi Dalet, hunts you, Aleph ve Ravava, 110,000 me Yaminka, at your right hand, toward Alika lo, and then the last word, Yod Gimel Shin, means to realize. Gimel Shin Vav Shin, feel, grope, reconnoiter, explore, scouting. It's a plummet for measuring verticality. It's calipers for, in other words, the people that come against us, whether it's 100 or 10,000, they're not even going to know it hit them. Wham! They're just going to be, Carla, did you just say we're at the end here?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, thank you. Again, this is a promise of the benefits. What is the tovness? So if I look back at, let me just run through this real quick. If I read the 8 words that David wrote as a sentence, which is one of the considerations, we get tov, taram, tovata, tafelo, tapash, tovli. Goodness, abundance, benefit, never done before. It's not yet, but it's anticipated. You are the goodness. It's all connected. I'm addicted, joined. I'm your parasite. I'm your dependent child. Slanderers maintain that this is tasteless folly. Nothing to see here. Subtle twisting, devious beguiling. Goodness is mine. My goodness, welfare, benefit, abundance, health, wealth, wisdom, prosperity. That's just reading the 8 words that start with the letter Tet in Psalms 119. Verse 8 of Psalm 91, only with your eyes will you see the shalom of the wicked on exhibition. And the word shalom there means payment, reward, or satisfaction. Only will you see is the word, hey bet tet is to see and utterance and perceive, but here it's tav bet yod tet. Just so you know, it's just a variation, a derivative of the spelling. Thus, ki atah Yahweh, thus you, Yahweh, machasi, my refuge, Elyon, most high, shin mem tav. Shin mem is the word there. Mem, ayin vav nun kaf, is the place of your ayin vav nun, which is where you, remember ayin nun hey, answer, reply, burden, humbled. You are my refuge, and there is the place where I will find your refuge. Where? How do you get access to Yahuwah? Verse 10, Lamed Aleph, which is the negatory, Tav Aleph Nun Hey. That means weep, grief, lament, but it's also fig tree, accident, the right time has come, prefix for a quarrel, mating time of animals. That's fig tree. Adam and Eve used fig leaves to cover their shame because maybe that's why the name of the fig tree got there. It means an excuse or be ashamed or grief or sorrowful. It's like when they realized what they were done and tried to hide behind a fig leaf, it's like, that's the same word, just so you know, Tav Aleph Nun Hey. Aleka, toward you, Resh Ayin Hey, friend, companion, but also evil. Vav, Nun Gimel Island, Naga, touch, reach, draw near, smite, strike, contaminate. Lo E Yod Kuf Resh Bet E Karab Be Hela, which means a friend who intends evil to sneak in and touch you will not be allowed to enter your tent. As a source of grief or sorrow. This is one of the things David was saying. It's like, that's like having your pineal gland open. That's like being aware. That's like not allowing somebody to sneak in and take advantage of you. Or even if they do, or they try to, they're going to get in big trouble and Yahuwah is going to cover us. These are statements of confidence. That's verse 10. Verse 11, Ki malakio, for his messenger, for he will give his angels charge over you to guard you in all your ways. La shamarka bekal debarka ika. Yeah, but what if that doesn't happen? What if the reality is that so the interesting thing is the next two verses, 12 and 13, are the what if. It starts with the word ayin lamed, which means a yoke or connection. Nun ayin lamed is a shoe, or that which is closed up. Kafim, what if hands he will lay waste, crash into ruins, Shin Aleph, so it's Yod Shin Aleph Vav Nun Kaf. What if hands grab you and perhaps Pei Nun Tav Gimel Pei? That's like the modern letter Hey is drawn modern cursive, like two lines like this, like it's back, body. I'd mentioned it earlier. Hugged, the vamp of a shoe. Be Eben Ragalka. What if you're like with your feet walking on stones? What if your way is just crunched and ruined and oppressed? In verse 13, what if even though Shin Het Lamed, trying to pull a thread through a needle, or it's pulling your limbs out of joint, or it's a lion tearing you apart, Ve Patan, like a python, or a venomous serpent like a cobra, Dalit Resh Kaf, like a lion or a cobra on your way, just ruins your life. Tav Resh Mem Samik, trod or trampled. Kafir is Pevav Resh, a null, frustrate, a wine press, Peshod, Peyod Resh, like a pit hole or ditch. And then Vav Tav Nun Yod Nun, crocodile, sea monster, or dragon. It's like being thrown into a pit with dragons, like what happened to Joseph. Snakes and scorpions and lions, just what if everything just tears you apart? Verses 12 and 13. 14 is Yahweh responding to that, yeah, but what if? He says, Ki Kaf Yod Bet Yod, Ki B, Het Shin Kuf. That word Het Shin Kuf means longing, desiring, lust, covet. It's the spoke of a wheel, a ring or hope, and it means beloved. Het Shin Vav Kuf. Bind, joined and attached to. Vav Aleph Pei Lamed Tet Hey Vav. Well, Pei Lamed Tet is PLT or FLT, which is where you get the word flit. And the word flit means escape or I will rescue. So Yahweh is saying, because with me, he has his pleasure, longing, desiring. It's like the spoke of a wheel holds the rim to the hub. And it's like, he's integral with me. That's the capacity that we talked about being tetanus. It's the full basket of inside being yadded with Yahuwah, whatever he says, whatever his heart is, whatever his ruach is, I'm there with that. And if somebody says, you don't have to, I don't care if you think I don't have to, I'm going to, because that's where my chashak is. And he says, I will flit that one. And then he says, Aleph, Shin Gimel Bet, Hey Vav, Shin Gimel Bet is inaccessibly high, very strong, glorified, exalted, find protection because Yada Shemi. Ki Yada Shemi, because he knows my name. What's his name? Jesus. Call on Jesus. No, that's not his name. His Shem is not only Yod He Vav He, but it's the meaning of each one of these 22 letters and in their sequence order. And his Shem has to do with the Shabbat, and it has to do with the Moedim, and it has to do with his testimonies and his chok and his mitzvot and his Torah. That's what he said. Because he knows that. Well, that this particular way of studying everything he ever said is exactly that stuff. And then verse 15, Yod Kuf Resh Aleph Nun Yod. I have learned to read, and I will response. I will answer him amo with him on ki I am bet zadi resh hey, enclosed, impossible, fortified sheepfold to gather great. The grapes. It's a synonym with the Shin Gimel Bet. And then I will Het Lamed Zadi, rescue. It's a troop equipped for war. And I will Kaf Bet Dalet Hevav. And so Yahweh, I'm trying to go faster, we're out of time. Yahweh basically saying, this one I'm going to fortify. The word for Het Lamed Zadi also means uncovered, pioneer, vanguard, forward. It's a knot. I'm going to strengthen this guy like he can just be one of those guys that goes out in front of the army. You ever see the movie, might have just been called Achilles, where he was like the champion warrior of Odysseus going against in the siege of Troy. The whole fleet was moving in, and Achilles cranked up his boat, turned the engines up, as it were, the guys at the oar. It landed first, attacked, and took over the place before the rest of the fleet even showed up. That kind of an attitude is the Het Lamed Zadi. The last verse of Psalm 91, Erek Im, that's Aleph Resh Kaf, which is to lengthen or prolong. Im is a plural of days. Yod Vav Mem is day, but this is Yod Mem, Yod Mem. Aleph, Shin Bet Yod Ayin He Vav. Well, that's Shavia is the word seven or vow or to satisfy. Vav, Aleph Resh Aleph He Vav. Well, Resh Aleph He is the root word in the middle, which means to see or put on exhibition. And the last word, Bet Yod Shin Vav Ayin Tav Yod. Shin Vav Ayin is salvation. So he says, I will put on exhibition my salvation and satisfy his length of days to the one that learns to read, or the one that answers my call to join me in this gathering together. And it's all about knowing his Shem. So the full basket inside, if his Shem is, you might say, pictured by blue, purple, red, white, then to enter the Het, the fence with blue, purple, red, white, is to enter the place of his Shem, and the full basket, in my understanding of this, is to then grok it, understand it, comprehend, perceive, become it, to become one with his Shem of Yod He Vav He. Thank you, YHUH, for giving us that entrance into your Father's place, so we can join with you in being his Obed, his worshipful servant. Seeing from within, experiencing Yada firsthand, the meaning, the significance, and the behavior, but also where it then goes, everything he said. which means every word is just incredibly, valuably precious, that nothing else can compare to. And you can't see it unless you see it. If you know, you know, as they say. Thank you, Yahweh, for even giving us this stuff and making it available to us to see that we can see. Thank you. Make it so. Hodula Yuaki Tovki Leolam Chazdo. Hodula Yuaki Tov. Give thanks to Yahweh for the concept of the tovness, the fact that there is a tet that we can see and be and become, and that's just venturing into the future. That's just gearing up to be beyond the horizon. Kileolam, your chesed, your tender loving kindness, but also the fortress, the provision of your sword and shield that's in your words. We don't even know, and we've been lied to, but it's real. Thank you very much. Amen.